Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Monday morning. Kathy, we'll turn it right over.
Okay, good morning. Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. We haven't had, we're doing law enforcement records. Okay, good morning. Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. And we haven't had law enforcement records.
Kathy, you're a ventriloquist. Kathy, you're a ventriloquist. Well, we know the mics are live.
Think we're good?
Okay, we're ready to proceed with budget management review. The first department we have up is law enforcement records.
Good.
Nope.
Okay, we're ready to.
Okay.
Third time's the charm.
I know it.
Okay.
And it's past Halloween too.
We're going to
Yeah,
give you a little
spooky.
commissioner doll to sit
Yeah.
over there and do this with. Yeah.
Spooky. So law enforcement records is its own fund. So its primary revenue is in the category of goods and services. And this is where they are billing out for their services to primarily to the county and to other jurisdictions in which they retain records. And so they're showing their budget was $1,282,000, and we brought in $1,282,000. We've done the last bill. They do the billings quarterly, so the billings are complete for the year. And then they also have miscellaneous, which is primarily investment income. And so they're pretty much on track to make budget for their revenue on miscellaneous.
It's quite a jump from last year. Didn't they redid their fee structure or something with some of the cities, didn't they?
I don't know that.
Yeah.
So most of the billing comes to the county though.
Right. Yeah.
On their expenditure side, their largest expense, of course, is their personnel. We're not complete for the year on this. We're only through October, and I think we're only through the first payroll in October. So we still are on track to be below budget. We're actually currently targeted about 67% of our budget right now. And then they have some other expenses in supplies and services, but so far they're on track to not exceed budget for any of those other categories. And they have 11 positions and they're all currently filled according to the payroll information we pulled.
It seems a little late for me to ask questions on the records. We've changed the model a couple of times. And it strikes me that if I'm a policeman out on the street or a police captain or something like that, that law enforcement officer has access to records locally as well as statewide as well as national.
I don't know that.
Yeah, you can't possibly answer that, but I was hoping that maybe Brad was listening and could chime in on that, but I can talk to him later.
I can answer that for you, Arn.
Oh,
Julie
okay,
Harris
thank you.
with the sheriff's office. So yes, the deputies or law enforcement would have access to records that have been entered into the national state-wide database. However, all of those records have to be confirmed before being arrested on or any action being taken by the agency.
And confirmed means?
We would have to call and make sure that the record is valid and that certain criteria are met for them to take someone into custody or to arrest on a violation of an order.
And that's to prevent looking at something that has gone stale but not recorded as stale?
Correct. So if, say somebody already went to court, the court hadn't maybe given us the notification that something has been taken care of, we would want to make sure that that record is still active and valid before someone arresting on it.
And who pays, like, do we pay, does the county pay for access to the state records?
I believe that actually is paid through 911. So ultimately, yes, through the 911 bill.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Obviously, what I'm looking for there is, it seems like ultimately having a good sound database is useful, and I don't know that it requires so many hands in it. But that's for another discussion someday.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, yes, some of our things are more digital now, but we also have the public disclosure piece that is exploding. So that does take a lot more hands to handle that paperwork as well.
Please explain that again.
The public disclosure piece of what we do in the records department. So any records that are being requested, we have to review for redactions according to
Oh my
our
gosh,
CW.
okay. That's the one piece I was missing.
Yeah, and then we also have our concealed pistol licenses that we're doing the background checks on those as well. So we have a lot of different moving parts in our office.
Excellent. Your ballpark estimate of those public record requests, how much of your overall effort is being chewed up by that?
I would say a lot of our effort. Just to give an example, I did a video for 8.5 minute raw footage video, was 2.5 hours worth of work. And we have a lot of video now.
Yeah. Do you foresee having to increase staff because of that?
And there's potential because the public records for video is just building as more people are aware that that is available for them.
Yeah. How heavily trained does a redactor have to be?
So they do a lot of training through the AG's office. We do it through WAPRO. I'm trying to get all of my clerks certified so that they have a really good knowledge base on how to do that. That training to be certified is probably over a year by the time you get all the different courses when they're available.
If you were to hire a new employee and you wanted them to be facile in this redaction area, how long would it be before you would be able to turn them loose?
At the beginning level of public disclosures,
Yeah.
at least 3-4 months.
Okay, so there's quite a latency there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. This was quite helpful.
The video has really opened up a whole different realm, hasn't it?
Yeah, I had forgotten about that, but it smacks you in the face.
Yeah.
That's why it's a video. Sorry.
Well, hopefully the access to videos is a good thing. I mean, it should show that the police and the law enforcement agencies have done the due process and have, haven't abused their positions, because that's what the attorneys are looking for, is the gaps in this, in the service. And, hopefully the training is on our officers to do the right thing.
It's for everybody's protection. I wasn't at all suggesting there should be no video.
Yeah. I agree with that. It just takes more man hours to work with it, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I am curious about the numbers that 1.3 million that we collect on records or for goods and services. Does that include a fee that Cowlitz County pays into the department?
Yes.
Okay, so that's Okay, because I know we contract with the smaller cities, I think, for after hours, and we keep ours 24/7, but and what I'm curious is to whether or not the expenses are leapfrogging beyond what our expectations were. Are we covering more of the cost than we should, considering the 24/7 contract?
Yeah, I'm not involved in those contracts as far as how they're calculated, but I can tell you that for the 2025 budget, the number that we're budgeting, the county will be billed for law enforcement records is over 900, it's about $900,000.
Okay, okay.
That reminds me, there's, on the public records request issues, it's totally unbalanced in that the public can demand things that just aren't important, but because they're demanded, we have to oblige them. And it's a little bit like people can file a lawsuit all over the place without any downside to it. And I think there's a term, frivolous lawsuits. There, maybe we can work on an equivalent of a frivolous request. I don't know how to do that, and I know it's a dangerous thing, but we're exposed to abuse, and somehow there might be a way to clean that up. Along those lines, do we charge? So I make a call into law enforcement records and I want that 6-minute video. Do I pay something for that as a citizen?
I think Julie would be able to answer that question.
Yeah, so if you're involved, the RCW says that you get the video for free. If you're an uninvolved party to that video, then yes, we did that body worn camera cost study and you would be charged for that. The hard thing is we could do, we try to do an estimate, but it is really hard because you can only charge for the redaction portion of that video. So if the video has no redactions, we still have to review that entire video, which is never one video, it's multiple videos. And then we could tell you if there's going to be a fee for that. So doing an estimate is challenging.
And there has been quite a discussion of retention, and I imagine you're deeply involved in that also, Julie?
Yes. Yes, and we're trying to follow the retention schedules the best that we can to make sure that we're not keeping extra data that we do not need to keep, so that it makes it more challenging for public disclosure as well.
Right, right. So on this is for Kathy. When I look at the miscellaneous and it's 15,800 was the budget, what's the source of that miscellaneous revenue? Is that what we're talking about just now?
No, the miscellaneous is primarily the investment income for this fund because it's its own fund.
So Arn, I don't know if it was you or if it was someone else, but Katrina sent me a message and she said our split is 3.1 full-time employees for after hours. And the rest are the county pays.
Oh, yeah, that was Chairman Dawes, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's 3.1 employees are paid for out of the fees we charge other entities, right?
Correct.
Okay, I got it then.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the next item that they do have a fund set up specifically for equipment replacement reserve. And this one as well is billed out quarterly. And so they have budgeted 169, almost 170,000 for goods and services. And we have billed out 166,274.
Goods and services means here?
This is the revenue side where they've billed out. They're using goods and services as the category for the revenue.
Like the one I was just asking about?
Yes.
So this goes to pay for the technology primarily.
Right.
The
Spillman
program.
technology,
Yeah.
hardware, software.
And so a little over a quarter of that amount is collected from the other member entities that
Right.
we pay overtime for. And the rest of it comes from the county.
Right. The
And then if it
majority of
doesn't-
this
And
comes
then if
from the
it doesn't
county.
balance, the expenses, the reserves are tapped into.
Right.
So Katrina is saying that's actual Spillman costs. So that's our law enforcement portal.
Yeah, this is a billing in order to fund the replacement of the Spillman system. And then as far as expenses go, they have services is their primary expenditure, and they've budgeted 165,200. And year to date through October, they've spent $144,714 in those services.
And I suppose that's not only the licensing costs, which is probably the biggest share, but also service calls if there are any maintenance.
I think the agreement is, the software agreement is the majority of that.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not an equipment replacement, it's actual the Spillman cost.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay.
The next group that we're going to cover is, I believe, is it risk management, Bailey? Is that what you have next?
That's, yeah.
So we have a set of financials, and we also have, Shelley has her presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley.
We'll do the financials, and then I'll turn it over to Shelley for some of the details, operational details. So the first item is risk management. And this is where we pay all of our risk pool assessments, annual assessments. And then we turn around and it's a cost center that bills out to all of our departments. And so currently we have goods and services for the billings. It was budgeted at 2.9 million and we brought in 2.9. We bill, this is the one we bill in January. So we've already billed out our entire year. Our miscellaneous budget is primarily the investment income on holding on our cash investments, and we budgeted $68,500. We've so far brought in $72,700. And those are the only revenue areas for risk management.
Other financing sources?
Oh, other financing sources. For this year, because we ended up with a situation where the risk pool was billing us for, they changed their billing methodology for the assessment.
Oh, I remember. Okay.
So they had to bill us for 12 months here in October, which we just paid. And then they'll turn around next year and bill us for what they call a stub year, which is only for 3 months, 4 months. And so we had a transfer in from the general fund to help us provide enough cash flow to take care of that. And then when the new year comes, we will repay the general fund for those funds. So that's what the 570 is.
So next year we don't see that.
Right. From a cash flow perspective, we'll only see from October until December for a billing. But for this year, they billed us for 12 months all at one time, and that was not normal. They used
Yeah,
to split our bill
Usually
up,
Do 2 billings.
Right.
Yeah.
October and May. On the expenditure side, of course, our largest expenditure for risk management is the assessments. And that falls under the area of services. You'll see that we have a budget of 3.6 million. Our actuals, because this is we're pulling this from our trial balance from PeopleSoft, it includes the amount that we just paid, plus it includes about 900,000 that was brought over from the previous year as an accrual for prepaid. So before the end of the year, we will actually have a financial entry that will reverse because we paid for 12 months, but we're only October through December. So we will actually have a reversal later in the year for that part of that October payment. So it's on a financial basis right now, it's showing us over budget, but at year end, we'll have a reversal and move part of that into prepaid expense.
So I think you probably have answered this. In the services, that includes our contribution to the risk pool, right? And
Right, for-
that number is approximately?
Approximately for the year, it's a little over 2 million, I think about 2.6.
So we've got about $1 million that we pay out for other claims then?
Actually, the claims are paid in a different account called liability claims, but we have other services in our risk management. Some of the larger things that we pay out of risk management?
Like tort claims and.
No, they're not out of this.
liability. Gallagher, a lot of our.
We've-
insurance policies.
Yeah, so we have some separate insurance policies. We also have our training program that's paid out of services. This is with neo.gov. That's also included in services.
And that's about 50,000 on an annual basis.
So we buy stop loss insurance and that's that $1 million or so out of that pool. And the risk pool also buys stop loss insurance. We just
Yes.
want additional protection or a
No,
lower bottom?
We actually have a few policies that we don't purchase. We don't go through the risk pool. Like, for example, the pollution prevention policy is actually procured through a broker. We also have a couple of policies for blanket bonding that's procured through Gallagher as well.
Yeah.
It's not through the risk pool. So there's a few ancillary insurance policies that we pay for outside of the risk pool as well.
We pay a lot in insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we do any litigation on our own outside of the risk pool, it would appear in this line where the lawyers we would pay.
Yes.
Have we had to do that in the past 12 months?
Not that I'm aware of.
In the previous 12 months before your time?
I don't know. I don't remember anything. Nothing significant.
And who does the brokerage for that stop loss stuff or the additional?
For the additional insurance, we work through a company, Gallagher. That's our broker.
Are we not able to go directly or do we have to go through Gallagher?
We partner with the risk pool, so the risk pool definitely gets like a discount because so many of the participants of the risk pool go through Gallagher. So I know we do get a discounted rate through Gallagher.
Have you looked at the alternative? Not going through Gallagher?
No, not as a one-off, no, not since my
I
time
have
here.
run into this situation in the past where an insurance broker doesn't really look for the best for the customer because they've got the customer's been there for the past umpteen years. And so they don't bother to look ahead and come to you and say, you know, I could save you $150,000 if you did this. So I would look in there and be sure that we are doing the best we can.
It's a great suggestion.
That's a good suggestion. And that's it on the actual risk management account fund. We also have a fund called industrial accident insurance. And this one, as well as a cost reimbursement, cost allocation that we pay everything and then we turn around and bill our various units and departments in the county. We brought in for this year $515,000. We have miscellaneous, which is investment income on those funds. And we had budgeted $10,000 and we're currently at $19,258. So we're over budget on our revenue for miscellaneous.
I'm always curious about the names that we use. Why do we say industrial insurance? We're not an industry.
I don't
Is the state
know.
agency, does the state agency say labor? Is it labor and industries is the agency that we do?
When we start talking about operationally, we call it workers' comp. So I don't know why the fund wasn't named that.
It just seems misleading. That's all. Everybody understands workman's comp, but
We should
it's
rename
like,
it.
what industry are we involved in again? We provide services, that's true.
And then on the expense side, we have budgeted for services, $669,000. We currently are at $495,743. And this is primarily, it's our excess workers' comp policy. And it's also our actual claims because we're self-insured. And so we pay our claims per employee. And so that's the primary expenses for this fund.
One of the insurances we just talked about handles some overflow here or some
Right. And
stop loss.
right. And it's actually in this fund because it's tied directly to workers' comp.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Instead of being in the risk management account, it's in this fund since it ties back to workers' comp.
So if we wanted just one number that represents what we pay for insurance, you'd have to pull it out of, okay.
And we also pay for a third-party administrator out of this fund who helps us administer all those claims.
The TPA goes through Gallagher?
No, it's a company. It's actually the county contracts specifically directly with a company to be the administrator. And that previously was Everly Vivian.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Now it's Helmsman.
They've changed their name.
Yep.
Do you have any sense of whether that service is sort of commoditized in the sense that you can compare apples to apples and you get the cheaper apples or not, or is this just too difficult?
I would say we would have to hire someone to help us. We would need an additional body if we didn't have a third party assisting us.
Oh, yeah, no, a TPA is, I understand that, but
Oh,
trying to decide between TPA 1, TPA 2, TPA 3.
yeah.
We've actually been with this firm, I think, when I pulled the contract, like over 5 years. I think this next contract may be the end of the 5 years.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
It may be the end of the 5 years. We've been with this company for a number of years and have renewed.
So it's possible an RFP could be coming up at the end of the 5 years.
Yeah, it's possible. And we have some data to also show you in workers' comp when Shelley does her presentation, claims that have been closed and managed by that party. So
Yeah,
quite
it's not only the
interesting.
cost of the TPA, it's the performance of the TPA that impacts you. That's a really hard one to figure out.
We've quantified it for you. We knew you'd be asking.
How much do we pay the TPA just for the TPA services?
I don't have that broken down, but by quarter,
I think it's less. I think I have budget. I remember what I put in the budget, and it's about $64,000, $65,000 annually that we're budgeting for 2025 for this.
Yeah. My impression, just based on old man experience, is that your TPA, what you pay the TPA is going to vary a little bit, but not hugely. So you could easily spend a lot of time trying to find out that you save $3,000 for a $5,000 expense. But the performance of the TPA, I think, is the
Yeah.
crux of things.
To hire a full-time employee,
Oh,
we
no,
couldn't do that.
No, I'm not
Yeah.
even closely suggesting that.
Yeah. I think, and the number of claims that they handle and so.
and we do a pulse check monthly to go review all of the claims and review each case by case. So we're in the know every month.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last financial for risk management area is the liability claims, and this is the amount. This is its own fund, and this is where we handle, the risk pool works with us, and we handle the expenses that they incur and for defending our tort claims and our liability claims. And right now, we currently, we transfer money from risk management over here. We've transferred this year $182,000, hopefully to cover all the expenses we anticipate incurring this year. And that, the second page, the expenditure page, shows you that we have incurred more than we've transferred in, but we had fund balance. And so we have incurred about $255,000 this year. And included in that is one settlement that was paid this year. And so we're anticipating a little bit more in expenses for the rest of the year, but I think we're going to come in very close to what we have budgeted.
I'm confused here. Don't laugh. I was under the impression that once we paid our allocation to the risk pool, we would not be paying them anything more, but this makes it sound like if we have any claims, it's subject to additional charges.
Right. We have $100,000 deductible per claim.
Right.
And that, and so it accumulates and we keep track of those, and it accumulates for things like litigation service, most primarily litigation services. And those come out of this account. So we keep them separate so we can track our expenditures for all
Let me see if I
claims.
can translate that. So if there is a claim for $120,000, they will start, they'll allocate law staff. They'll keep track of the hours. They'll put that in a column that says we have paid $25,000 in legal fees, and we will then pay another $75,000. No, we will actually pay $100,000. Part of it going to pay for their legal fees.
Correct. Correct.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. So they keep track of all the expenses and they bill us once a month for expenses as we're incurring them up to the $100,000
Per claim.
per claim.
Did I tell you I'm going to go to law school?
And later we'll tell you about where we stand on number of claims outstanding with that. That's it for risk management, financials. And I'll turn it over to Shelley now.
Good morning, Shelley Pierce, Risk Manager, and I invite Scott Kalima if he wants, Risk Analyst. So we weren't here last month to present, so this is our November presentation. It will include the last 2 months of data. I presented to each of you a handout. This includes the return of our shop fire money. We had a shop fire a few months back, and so return of funds equals $103,000 back to our funds. So we're glad to have that all recouped. And then recently we had an event center HVAC that was, they were accessing the HVAC through a tree. They accessed the rooftop, and then the HVAC was broken into twice. It was brought to risk management's attention on September 12th. So right now the claim is pending. We're not sure if the leasee, because we lease our event center, if they're responsible or if we're responsible. Right now, the way risk management interprets the lease is that they're responsible. So 2 separate break-ins. I think it's pending around $80,000 in damage. The tree was cut down and removed, so they no longer have access to that rooftop. I think they were probably selling the copper or what have you. So more on that, hopefully, as we continue the investigation on that.
Question,
Mhm.
return of funds, could you explain who returned what funds?
So when we have a claim, we have an insurance adjuster that says, we are now going to refund you your expenses and anything over your deductible. So our deductible, I believe, was 5 or 10,000. I think it was 5,000. So then due to all the damage, it was a difference of $103,000. There were some cars that were on fire. There was some supplies that were damaged. Obviously, the shop was damaged, a lot of cleanup that we had to pay for. So over and above our deductible, there was a return to us of $103,000.
This was the motor pool.
The motor pool,
Yeah.
correct. I believe there was some stored vehicles in there that were damaged and or total loss. A lot of supplies in the motor pool area, garage doors or windows, a lot of supplies in that area. I don't have the complete breakdown, but I know over and above the deductible, it was a return to us of 103.
So because we divide our expenses at the motor pool with the road fund, do they get a portion of this 103?
They did. I believe they received $23,000 back over and above.
Sometimes I can be a real nuisance. Return of funds has a different connotation in my mind than insurance payment. Is that standard? I mean, that sounds like it's misleading to me. It's like, I loaned you 100,000 and you're giving it back to me.
So loss of items. So when we lose items in a
Oh, I
fire.
understand that. I'm
Oh,
speaking
okay.
specifically about the term. Is that something that we could change to be more indicative of what's going on?
Sure. Yeah, we can change that in our language.
Makes sense to you?
Certainly.
So the total damage was around $203,000.
It was around 115,000 roughly. I can't remember what our
Yeah, it's about 115.
115 minus our deductible,
Oh, so but the deductible was,
around $10,000.
all right.
And then 23 of that 103 went back to the motor pool. Oh, 5,000 is our deductible, sorry.
Yeah.
We have 2 different deductibles, so thank you, Kathy. But yeah, we can change that language from return of funds.
And
Any,
the event center HVAC, that's 5,000 or 10,000? That's 5,000 also?
that is 5,000 also, correct. Any
Okay.
questions on those 2?
You mentioned there was some confusion about who's
We lease,
program?
yeah, we lease the event center. So in review of the contract, we needed to see who was responsible for the HVAC. Is it us or is it the people, the leaseor, the leasee? And so when we reviewed it with our risk pool, it was determined that the leasee is responsible, not the leaseor. So they'll be doing the repairs and correcting the HVAC.
So that's the Public Facilities District.
Correct.
All right.
You know, where I grew up, we had to put everything inside cages or concrete block walls with broken glass at the top to keep people from climbing. This is just a lamentation on my part. We have really slid down a long way. This is what you'd expect in a third world.
So,
Destroy something for 10% of the value. It just,
Yeah.
yeah, $80,000 in damage for,
Well, the folks who are scrounging for metals to survive, that, yeah, that's third world activity.
right?
well, but
It's,
you know, I've been to South Africa when that was an issue, but those people are not talking about paying their tattoo bill. They're talking about putting food on the table. I'm not condoning it either way, but we're a world apart from that, except in the manifestation where we should be ashamed of ourselves.
Yeah. Sad situation all around. Any questions on the HVAC? Follow-up? More event centers. So we had two expo car accidents, one in 2023 and one in 2024. So shortly after I got here, I started to recoup the funds and kind of research the two separate car accidents. And we were able to recoup funds after we went after the separate parties, and we were able to recoup $21,968 back to the expo bottom line. So that was a win-win in both situations.
And that stays with us, or do we share that with the district?
That stays with us because we own the fence. Yeah,
That's from their insurance companies.
correct. Yeah. Our risk pool, that was directly from the risk pool. It was a
Oh.
property claim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, we couldn't go after the insurance companies. It's a very long story.
So, yeah, this comes that 10,000, I should be able to find a check from the risk pool that says 10,903.
Mhm.
Does that, should I infer from that, that the whole thing was 110,903?
No. No.
Why was the risk
This is a
pool even
property
involved?
claim. So property claims are different. So only one though. So one, we went after the insurance company, and one of the parties did not have insurance or was not properly insured. So in the 2023 claim, the husband did not have permission to drive the wife's work vehicle. And so that we had to put through a property claim. The 2024 claim, we did go through their insurance company. So it was an auto accident. The 2023, we went as a property claim.
Got it.
Sorry. So two separate car accidents, both totaling recoup of $21,968. And then since my arrival, I've been actively working on evacuation maps, making sure we have all updated signs posted in all of our buildings. We've also been working on making sure we have adequate AED machines, updated first aid kits, making sure our fire extinguishers have been looked at on an annual and very automated basis. The only updated HVAC map that we're really waiting on is due to CAD maps as our HOJ building. But all other outlining buildings have been updated, and our next step for evacuation maps is updating and reviewing the actual policy. Any questions?
Thank you. I've noticed a change in the direction signs for departments that had disappeared years ago that were still listed. There is a sign in the lobby with individual letters that's still way outdated. It's not the sign like we've been talking about, but it's actually I guess a register of what services are on each floor. And
In the admin building?
yeah, it's here in this building I think it's on the first floor, if I remember, near one of the main entrances. And it's like, you go by it all the time, you don't pay any attention to it because you're not
Mhm.
looking, but somebody who's trying to find a particular department would find it misleading, so.
Okay, we'll take a look at that sign and do updates as needed.
I mean,
Work with our sign.
I've been walking by it for almost 12 years, that I just noticed it last week, so.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, for bringing that to our attention.
Question on the policy review. I assume you mean that you will produce a policy review. You will submit to the board the suggested changes and all okay.
Correct. First, we'll submit any updates and policy changes to our attorney and then to you guys. Correct.
Your attorney meaning our
Yes,
legal.
our attorneys, yes. And then every year annually, we have the opportunity to take advantage of a risk reduction grant. So we hopped right on that. We received a $5,000 risk reduction grant from the WCRP, and we used that, utilized that $3,000 at the museum. They have a gift shop which takes currency, and so they were kind of out there on Low Man's Island, removed from the sheriff's department. So we got them remote control panic alarms, which alerts the police and things like that. That should be installed by year end. We're partnering with a new security company as well. And then we also secured a new AED machine, AED pads, 2 storage units for the cost of $2,000. So we used every penny of that $5,000 grant that we can ask for annually. So we'll be asking for that again. And we'll be putting an additional panic alarm remote control buttons over at the HOJ for any department that accepts currency that's feeling like they want another layer of protection. So it's just a nice layer, and it's nice that we can take advantage of those risk pool grants that are available.
I understand the museum became a priority after a certain commissioner broke in.
Yes, I mean, I heard about that. It was all over social media and stuff. No, just joking. So that'll be nice to have that over there and get some training over there
Yeah,
on those alarms.
But I heard he broke in because he needed to straighten out a few of the displays.
You were volunteering?
Yes. How does that panic button, can you describe the functionality or the
Yeah.
operation?
Sure. So do you remember old pagers that we used to wear on our hips and stuff? It's
Yeah.
kind of like that. There's a sensor around the doors and such. So it literally is like a pager or alarm that you would hit the panic button. You can either wear them or you can have them adhere to a desk or a wall of sorts, and then you would just push it if you're feeling unsafe, or if you feel in a robbery situation, you can just put your finger on the panic button. It alerts the authorities. We even have a system where it's called a MagTech lock, which will automatically lock the doors. In an armed situation or an armed robbery situation, you wouldn't want to lock the perpetrator in the building, but you would want to alert authorities. So there's 2 separate buttons, one that can lock the doors and one that can actually just alert authorities.
So the museum has the lock the door capability as a panic button?
We'll be gaining the, I'll have to confirm that for you, Commissioner, but I know for sure the alert the authorities.
Yeah, typically when I ask, I'm asking specifically, what did we get for the 3K?
I know
the world has a lot of opportunity.
Yeah,
to
for
add
sure. It's the alert the authorities.
So if I'm an employee there, I push the button and I can expect the response from law enforcement.
Correct. It has
Nobody else has to be involved.
Correct. It has the capabilities to add those things if the museum wants. There's many add-ons if you want.
What does a 3K pay for? How many of those little devices?
It pays for, I believe, so 3,000 would have covered almost the entire HOJ. It's per building, and it covers all of the installation, all of the electrical, and I believe up to 5, because the museum didn't need that many alarms or buttons, so we only put 3 buttons at the museum. But if and when we install it at the HOJ, it will handle multiple panic buttons because of the size of the HOJ building. So the $3,000 will almost cover the entire building. So it will save us a lot of money if we were to discontinue other alarm services through HOJ. It will save us quite a bit of money.
This doesn't tie into 911?
It does.
And so of the 3K, we got 3 to 5 devices at the museum?
Correct, because that's all we need because it's such a
Yeah,
small
yeah.
building. Correct.
And then we had to do something in the Hall of Justice?
We'll be moving forward at the Hall of Justice in 2025. Using the WCRP grant again, because every
No,
year.
I understand that. I'm trying to figure out what it is we paid for the 3K
Oh.
and I want to look at it with a very narrow view.
Sure, we paid for
5
the,
pagers, essentially.
yes,
And
the
that's it.
electrical installation, setup and training.
The electrical installation is where? At the Hall of Justice?
At the museum.
At the museum. Okay, thank you.
And then Slips and Falls, a huge thank you to our facilities department. They've just been lifesavers. Lots of fallen leaves, so we've requested a lot of separate leaf blowing. We added grip strips to all of the back stairwells at the HOJ, added rugs inside the entrances of the stairwells. We also proposed to remove the 3 yellow painted concrete barriers from the front of the HOJ in hopes of reducing slips and falls. We had a couple recent, I'd say within the last 3 months, slips and falls due to those yellow curbing. So we asked that they be removed.
That's confusing to me. How do the concrete barriers that protect the building from cars and trucks cause slips
So-
and falls?
You know, the stairs that go down right in front of the HOJ as you're exiting the actual building.
Okay.
And then there was like yellow curbing. I believe it's directly in front, correct?
Yeah, there's yellow curb stops at the very end of the stairwell. Even though they're painted yellow, we've had 2 separate instances with the public who had claimed that they had tripped on those and had sustained some injuries. So a proposal was to remove them because they didn't seem like they were really contributing and they seemed like they're more of a tripping hazard. So that's where we got that idea.
So if I'm facing coming in the main entrance of the HOJ, where am I looking? If I'm standing at the entrance, just about to step in the building, I look behind me at the first curb going down?
No, this would be coming from the parking lot.
Oh.
So the stairs coming from the parking lot. There's
There's on the north side.
the Riverside.
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 Oh, from the lower parking lot.
Lower parking.
Exactly, yeah. And there at the bottom of those stairs, there's 3 curb stops. I think they're to be deterrents for people to not park in front of the stairs.
Oh, these are curb stops.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, different to what I had pictured in my mind, yeah.
Concrete barriers look more than
Yeah.
curbs.
Yeah.
Stops. Okay,
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
We should have included a photo, but yeah, there's 3 of them and we've had 2 separate
I think you're
instances.
right. They probably said, well, we don't want people parking here and put those, there would be my guess.
Yeah.
And we'll be reviewing to make sure that that was the right assessment. We did a risk assessment to review that. So we'll go back and make sure that that was the right call, whether or not something else should be there in place.
Yeah, I had pictured a substantial maintenance effort to remove that, but no, it's just picking up 2 parking stones.
Yeah, and we would probably want to replace those with some sort of no parking sign or hash, stripe hash the entrance of the stairs.
Just the painting right there.
Yeah.
And then on to newsletter. So risk management's creating a either monthly or random newsletter with just information, whether it be risk management, safety. And so in November, all staff will be seeing something around prevention on slips and falls. So that will be coming to a theater near you. And then I will turn it over to Scott in regards to workers' compensation.
Going back to the parking stuff. Have you looked at past history? That's been there for a long time. So I'm wondering what might have changed that makes that a hotspot now. So I'd expect to see claims from past years there also. And
Get an increase.
I'll have to dig into that. From my memory, I don't remember seeing any incidences previously till this year.
And are these claims by employees or?
The 2 that I'm speaking on were from the public.
Okay. And do we have a camera in that area?
We have a camera inside the building. Both
I know that.
employees.
I'm asking, do we have a camera that highlights that spot?
No.
No.
Because I've seen some of the torts in the past, and without the cameras, we'd probably end up having to pay.
Mhm.
And the cameras always show the truth.
Yeah, we do not have cameras, and the last 2 citizens that have tripped or fallen were pretty serious. No claims came through, so we were very proactive to say, okay, what's causing these slips and falls? And so that's why we decided to remove them.
And currently, we have the Hall of Justice Security Project, which was grant funded, and then they received a second grant funding. On the second grant funding, we're in the process of procuring an additional camera that would be able to get that east parking lot views. And so we're looking at adding that in the future, the
Good,
cameras.
thank you. I think that'd be useful. I can imagine once you get the parking stones removed, you still have a step up as you start your steps. And because the parking stones aren't doing anything useful, best as I can tell, I think your suggestion is a good one. But the big picture says we've got a camera everything.
I agree. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, workers' compensation. So for the month of October, we've had 2 closed claims and 2 new claims. And we currently have 10 claims open. We are looking to close 5 within the next month. And for the year, we have closed 30 claims total, which includes 15 from the previous years. And we had open 25. Next slide, please. This slide just goes through what our average claim we are paying per quarter for this year. If you compare it to 2023, which is around 5,000, that's an average for all claims for that year. We have doubled in incurred costs for each claim for 2024. Q1 and Q2 were our most expensed. We've had a lot of claims that we had to close out previously, but that Q1 and Q2 had our most severe injuries. Q3, we had more injuries, but they were less severe. And then Q4, the 2 new claims have not incurred any costs as of right now. Next slide. This slide just goes over our average days open per claim by year. The trend is downward, so that's good. We are starting to hone in on processes so that we're not keeping these claims open as long. Rule of thumb is that the longer these claims are open, the more expense we incur or pay. So from 2023, went from 138 days average to 83.
I assume those numbers are for all claims that have been closed,
This is all claims, yes,
that have been closed.
all of them, all claims, closed, open, pending. Oh,
Well,
I'm sorry, yes, yeah, you're correct. Yep. So this slide is, I don't know if you can, on the bottom, it shows open claims. So we have 1 open claim still open from 2015, 1 open claim still from 2023, and then we have 8 claims for this year. We have incurred for 2024, $780,780. And we had paid close to 70 this year, 70,000. So our hopes is to have the 2023 claim closed and paid to its full, hopefully by Q1 of 2025. And same with the one in 2015. We are expecting another surgery from that one, so. Next slide, please. This breaks down each claim or all claims opened this year by department. By no surprise, sheriffs and the roads administration are tied for the highest. We have one that was submitted, but that was not an actual employee. So that's why that shows NA. And really the trend overall for other departments actually have gone down. Sheriff's Department and the roads administration are about the same as last year at this time of year.
I will add some kudos. Scott's done a really good job of communicating with staff from the get-go, from day one of an injury. Solid communication with managers and supervisors from the moment we get the claim, kind of what are the next steps. So I think that's really helped with shorten the time frame of our claims. So really good communication between leadership and Scott, who's been running all of our workman comp claims. So kudos to him for just really good follow-up, really good communication. So thank you. So now we're on to our liability claims. So as of October 1st, tort claims, we had 11. New claims in October, we had 2. Closed claims, 0, and total of 13. Nothing too big to report. And then last week, we ended the week with some WCRP contract training where Executive Director was able to come down here and share his overall experience handling contracts and shared that learning with us. We had 15 attendees. We held that last week, and it was just wonderful training so that as we receive and review contracts, we have that much more in-depth knowledge and learning to be able to provide oversight for any contracts that we're reviewing. So that is our presentation. Any questions?
when you say 15 attendees, those are 15 county employees?
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to that pie chart and thank you for that information. this is exactly the kind of information we need to be able to identify long-term trends. I mean, I don't remember seeing a pie chart with this kind of information. We're not used to getting it, which is a reflection of the fact that we have staffed up the department. And it should be helpful, you know, for next year as the commissioners can reflect back on changes. And I would imagine you're looking at those claims in roads administration and sheriff's department to provide additional support to those departments on, do they need more training, or are there some structural things that need to be adjusted? I'm hoping they're not the ones tripping over the barriers in front of Hall of Justice, but you know, they're in a more dangerous.
Yeah, and just to
Circumstance.
say that, thank you for that. Just to say that both the roads administration, sheriff's department, corrections, juvenile, corrections, not going on, juvenile, even though the trend may not be going down as fast as we would like, it's still going down overall. So it's actually been an improvement across the board for everybody. And I think that long-term wise, we will see a positive trend.
And the other indication of the change that we made in terms of personnel for risk management is the number of days the claims are open. I mean, that's a pretty significant reduction. And that's so I appreciate the job that's been done. So
Yeah, we even talked to, well, not we, but Scott talked to HR last week that we'd like to spend some time with all new employees just to educate them on what we do in the situation of a LNI claim. So that way they know who to contact, who to speak to, who to reach out to. So that way we don't seem like we're the big bad risk management team. We're the partners. We're there to help you and your management team. So now we'll be a part of, or not a part of orientation, but we'll just be a piece of it. So, yeah.
sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That include paper.
Okay, Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director, and we'll go over the financials first, and then I'll turn it over to Sean for operational comments. Solid waste, the first fund is the fund that has our billings for solid waste landfill. And the primary revenue generator here is under goods and services. We have budgeted 27,339,000, almost 340,000 to date through October. We have brought in $19,988. There's, of course, I think a bit of a lag there on billings, but we're on track to make budget. So we basically have one more quarter. Miscellaneous is primarily revenues from investment income, and Sean may help me on this.
That's mainly going to be investment income.
Right. On this fund. And then proprietary funds is 155,000 budget, and we've already brought in our $155,000 in revenues on that.
Proprietary funds means?
I'll have to look it up. I don't recall what's in that category, but we've already received the full year. I'll have to look it up. I'll have to get back to you.
Is this the largest department financial wise?
Yes.
As Kathy said, there's quite a lag on goods and services. You know, we do have 45-day billing window, and we also have a large accrual back into the prior year, usually about, I believe in 24 for 20, accrued back in 23 is about $3.5 million.
Onto expenses. We have personnel of about $2.6 million budgeted. And through October, the first payroll in October, we're at 1.7 for actuals. So we're on track for our budget. We're actually a little bit below our target there. And then the next area is supplies. We have budgeted $1.6 million. So far this year, we've spent $813,000. The services is our contract with Waste Connections.
Yeah, Waste Control, Waste Connections is part
Waste
of the
Control.
services.
And so we have budgeted 22.6, and through this point in time, we've expensed $12,344,000. And on the transfers is the expenditure for rent that the landfill pays. No, I'm sorry. Transfers are the transfers for the closure, post-closure expenses. And so those have all been created for the year already, $7.7 million. And in services, that's where the payment is for the line above is where the payment is for the rent.
So the 22 million includes whatever
The
the
rent
rent is to,
Mhm.
and it includes waste control.
as well. That's the primary expense there.
And is there anything else in there?
Yeah, we're gonna have our quarterly testings, our professional service contracts, things of that nature as well.
And building of the cells would be there?
The, any of the engineering and construction of future cells would be out of our ELF fund, the 4802.
Oh, it wouldn't be in this line item?
Correct.
It would
not.
not.
That's the next packet.
Mhm.
So these closures, we put almost $8 million aside this year for that. How do we
Sure.
determine that? I mean, because laws could change. Do you kind of look at that each year and say, what's this do to us?
Yeah, so annually we complete what's called an FA, a financial analysis of it. We look at both of our landfills, both the closed tenant way, and make sure we have complete funding for that site for the remainder of the closure period. And then for headquarters, we do both a post-closure, so once we actually close the landfill, make sure we have enough funds set aside to continue that activity, and then the closure itself of closing the landfill and preparing it for the post-closure process.
At this point in time, how much are we estimating needs to be in that when we close that?
I believe at the end of 23, we estimated $120 million.
120 million. Subject to change depending on what Olympia does, right?
Yeah, I expect that to increase annually.
Yeah.
And if we've done a very good job, that 120 million will not be spent, right? In its entirety.
I would expect the closure portion to be spent in the post-closure, as long as nothing goes wrong. No. We'll have our annual testing requirements and things of that nature. We do have a holder for replacement of certain items. Sorry, I got distracted there.
I got it. Our new finance manager brought me an answer on the proprietary funds. Back on the landfill. That was a result of our insurance recoveries. Remember, we had a fire at the landfill?
Okay.
And so that amount represents the and that's why I wasn't familiar with it. It's not something that happens every year.
Okay.
Thank you, Susie.
Hopefully, yeah, thank you, Susie. Hopefully we won't have that, see that again.
We don't want to have that.
We don't want to have
Yeah,
that
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
Sorry. Okay, now we're on solid waste equipment, land and facility. And on the revenue here, miscellaneous is primarily investment income. And so we have budgeted 200,000. We've already received 276,000 currently. And then we have other financing sources, which is the primary revenue item here, and that's budgeted at 5 million. And we currently have 5 million already, and that's a transfer in.
Correct. So the ELF fund is completely funded by the operations of the landfill. Any equipment replacements such as D8s or compactors, as we've asked in the past, or for engineering for the new cells and the construction of the new cells would be funded out of this fund.
So I've always made comments about the acronyms that we use, and this acronym I like. It's easy to remember. As well as CRAB. Between CRAB and ELVS, we've got the cover. We've got the county covered, I think.
And for expenditure wise, we have budgeted 2.1 million on capital. And so far this year, we have $1.4 million actuals. So we're currently under budget.
So we're in the rainy season, and in the past, that has caused some problems because construction in the middle of the mud and slop doesn't go very well. Several years ago, we had some major expenses, unexpected expenses because of the weather. And you mentioned you've changed the approach, so you've tried to reduce the amount of construction during the rainiest part of the season. I'm assuming that's still part of the schedule. They're still working on opening up cell 10, right?
So we're currently in the process of engineering on cell 10. We expect plans to be together by the end of 25 for construction in 26 on that. We have no construction going on currently, and our open face is quite small for the area.
Okay.
Okay, now we're on to post-close unlined. This fund basically currently only has miscellaneous income, and that's for investment of the balance, the fund balance. And it was budgeted at 30 million, and it's currently sitting at $34,711.
30,000.
This is
30,000, sorry, not million, $34,711. And there are currently no expenses in this account, this fund right now.
so post-closure unlined, that's for headquarters, right?
This is for Tenant Way. This is the oldest section of the landfill at Tenant Way landfill.
And how's that different from,
We would.
why do
not-
we have one that's lined and one that's unlined? I didn't
Yes, sir.
understand that.
Pardon?
I don't understand.
So in the oldest section of the landfill, there is not a bottom liner on it. In the newer section of the landfill at Tenant Way, there is a liner. That's going to be this, the changeover from 1992 and the constructions of that time.
So speaking of that, that's the next fund, which is post-close lined. And for this fund, we have revenue, miscellaneous, of course, represents our investment, primarily investment income. We had budgeted 100,000. We brought in 224,000 so far this year. Then on proprietary funds, we have nothing budgeted, but we do have actuals of $2.8 million. And that was, there were 10 acres of the landfill that were sold. And so Sean has some information on
So,
that.
yeah, as you're all familiar, we've been working with the Port of Longview for their rail corridor expansion. We did sign a possession and use agreement with the port. At that time, they did transfer us the $2.8 million. The sale has not completed yet, so we may be recognizing that revenue in the future year, depending on the closure date of that. Currently, it's being held in trust until the sale goes through.
That was my question.
So what makes it become final? Is it some of the wells and the different things you've had to move?
Yeah, so it's, as we discussed in prior meetings, we did have to relocate some of our monitoring wells. Those have been relocated physically.
Okay.
We are finalizing some of the documentation with ecology on that. And I think the port has a few other due diligence items to take care of, and then we can settle that project out.
Gotcha.
And at some point in a not too distant future, that the sale comes to the board, right?
Yes, sir.
The new board members will have to sign on the obligations that we've placed on them, right?
If they choose to.
So for this fund, there are no expenditures currently, no actual expenditures. We do have a transfer budgeted for 230,000, but no expenditures so far.
And just to clarify on that, we don't show expenditures on this because we have created a liability line for the long-term liability of that closure at Tenant Way. And so that's where any of the current billings are coming out of. And that's adjusted annually.
And I know you've told us multiple times how many years left on this.
I believe there's 20 years left on Tenant Way at a minimum.
It's a 30-year closure program. It's been closed for 10 years.
Yes, sir.
And that leads into the next one, that is the headquarters closure fund. And that currently has, for revenue, has budgeted $550,000 under miscellaneous. And we've already received $787,000 there, and that's primarily investment income. Other financing sources is budgeted at $2 million, and we've already received $2 million of actuals for that. And other financing sources are transfer in.
Correct. So this is the closure fund for headquarters landfill. As we discussed, this is funded by the landfill operations itself. Every year we recalculate this value and make a transfer that's appropriate to cover that liability.
And so for the expenditures, there are no expenditures from this fund for the current year. We do have a budget of $2 million for transfers out, but those haven't been recorded yet.
So Sean, these monies are set aside, so our county treasurer and her investment committee make sure these are invested in funds that can get a favorable rate, because we don't need to use that money for a long time. So they should be able to get a good healthy return. Whereas some of our more liquid reserves, we're using every month, and they can't be loaned out at a very high rate. So it all goes into the pool, which is about, what was the last one? About $730 million for our pool. The county treasurer invests all government's reserves. So school districts that have bond issues, there's a lot of money that's set aside. So it's a huge amount that they invest for us. So you notice the miscellaneous, these are figures that we have not seen in most of the time that you and I have been on board. Those miscellaneous amounts have been very little, but we changed combination of things. The interest rates have changed nationally, but we've also invested differently too, have increased the amount of revenue for.
Yeah, and Treasurer Gardner and her staff have done a great job for us on this investment side of items here.
Question on the Tenant Way landfill. Do you monitor the airspace there also?
So per the closure, we will be doing our 10-year flight of that, and then we'll be monitoring and comparing what the airspace looks like at that in the coming year.
I don't think it's practical, but theoretically, we could reopen it if we had a lot more airspace there.
That'd be a possibility. The unlined landfill was discontinued in early 90s, and then the lined landfill was put into operations in 92. So by the time it was closed, there was significant shrinkage already by that time, but there is a possibility of that.
If we were to, I'm trying to understand a little bit of the access we have, given that we sold the acreage to the Port of Longview. Does that preclude us going back to the landfill if there's airspace available?
My understanding is no. We still have the same access rights to that property as we do now.
The property we sold includes the old transfer station though, right?
It does. That would include the scale house,
Yeah.
the large metal structure, and then the property heading to the towards the city of Longview.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah, so at the end of the 10 years, when you do your very first flyover?
Yeah, so we will be doing that this December, and we can come back with those numbers to the board or future board and present those results as well.
It's kind of exciting, actually. I know it's strange.
Yeah, it would be kind of interesting to see, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and there's only one fund left related to solid waste. That's the headquarters landfill post-closure fund. This fund has a little bit of miscellaneous revenue budgeted for $200,000. We've actually already received $273,000. It has other financing sources of $700,000 budgeted, and we've already recorded that $700,000, which is a transfer in. So we're finished for the year on that. And then there are currently no expenses on this fund. And we have budgeted $775,000 as a transfer, but nothing has been booked so far this year.
And just to clarify on the expenses on both the 40902 and the 40901, those expenses are calculated at the end of the year as the liability, and then we expense that at that time for the long-term liability adjustment.
Once the calculation's been completed.
Sean, we talked about the increase in revenue from investments that have been fairly substantial, much more than was budgeted. Why wouldn't those unplanned for increases in revenue be put back into the rate structure to keep rates lower for the folks who own the landfill?
So as we look at the transfers into the post-closure and closure funds, we do take into account the interest earnings on those funds. And we do either reduce or change that transfer at that point in time. And anything that is over and beyond that would stay with the operating fund to stay with those expenses in that rate structure at that point.
Because on the one hand, when we're setting rates, we want to make sure that the rates don't get behind the increase in expenditures. I mean, because then you have the double-digit rate increases that everybody hates. But on the other hand, this is kind of unique in that it has an opportunity to generate extra dollars. Not only do we get those contracts that provide extra costs, but we've got this interest income. And I'm just wondering if that's not an opportunity to make sure that we provide rate relief. Can't really call it rate relief because it's all built into the revenue streams, but if the closure funds are budgeted, and we have so many dollars that we need to reach, yeah, that's over a certain amount of time, and the revenues are coming in faster at a faster rate, I would imagine the owners of the landfill should get the benefit of ownership, which is, our customers.
I have a little difficulty with that. I look at the landfill as a business. And we already are very favorable constituents. I've never heard anybody complain to us that they pay too much or pay too much. And the moment we start to ignore the market, we do bring upon ourselves some unintended consequences. Part of what I would like to do is, and this is a big thing for the finances, all these numbers are fine, but I describe it as kind of going to a CPA and saying, how much does it cost me here? They can't ever answer because they give you a spreadsheet and they give you this fund and that fund. And it's like, I just want to know, if I invest in your company, what can I possibly expect to receive? And if you go to Fisher's Investment, it's the same thing. They just simply will not answer. On the average, an investor in Fisher, how much did they get? Because ultimately, I've got to compare that to what I make in the bank or something like that. And I think we really want to have a lot of that, a lot more transparent. The public really needs to know all kinds of stuff so they can do a proper assessment of, are we doing our job or not? And with the landfill, it's one of those things where we don't know what tomorrow holds. Tomorrow Mount St. Helens may blow and we're stuck. We no longer have an asset, we have a liability, a huge one. So I'd be super conservative and not try to cross any lines or treat it like a business. Get the most out of it you possibly can, fully realizing that you have a familial attachment to the public here.
Okay.
Okay.
And one other thing, the problem we currently have is we know people from Oregon come here and their friends use the transfer station here to say it's in county waste. Yeah, we have a tier structure that says if you're out of the county, you make that discrepancy that big, it's a whole bunch of other problems we're going to get.
Other things you want to add?
No, I think we discussed everything as we went through. Just wanted to make sure we're clear on all the items as we went through the budgets here.
Yeah, I think we're good, John.
Thank you.
So
We'll move right
we-
into, we're done with budget items, right? We'll move right into agenda item review. Tracy's been patiently back there.
Mr. Chairman, I think we ought to go to the landfill and make sure that the trash is there.
Yeah, Yeah.
That's just auditing, proper auditing.
We might have a trash auditor position when you retire. You could, there you go.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. In front of you for tomorrow, I have 3 agenda items. The first one is the interlocal agreement with the City of Castle Rock. We were approached and asked if we could do their building side of their business. So for building permits, plan review, fire code review, and inspections, we will be doing all of the City of Castle Rock's effective January 1st, if you guys sign this tomorrow. We're very excited. It's kind of an honor that they asked us. We have staff capacity as of right now to do this additional work, and so we are looking forward to it. We don't think there will be a ton of extra work. They do have exit 48 that they are expanding, and we know there's some track housing that will be involved, and I believe the last number was 80 homes in that area, and then some light industrial buildings as well. So hopefully 2025 is busy for them and us as well.
That's all the Tappanee.
The Tappanee, yes, development on that. I guess it's kind of a excavated site at this point behind the Timberland Church. I think
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Timberlake.
Yes, thank you.
And then they run the water and stuff across to the other side. So I know the possibilities are going to open up over there too for them.
There will be possibilities because they'll have access to both city sewer and water. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good deal to help the city. Right now, they're using a private firm out of Olympia. Am I correct there?
Yes, and we actually have that same firm as one of our third-party backups in case we get busy, but they currently cannot service them 4 days a week, and we can. So that's what our plan is. So we'll take in all of their applications and take a portion of the fee structure, and then they'll retain some of it for their own revenue
So how long is the agreement for?
until one party terminates it. There's a
So
90-day
this is like a
clause.
permanent thing.
Will be a permanent thing, yes. We currently back up the city of Kelso for any vacation leave and fill-ins that is needed. So we have been doing that as an on-call basis, but this one will be permanent.
So I just have a curiosity question. If I'm building in the city of Castle Rock, I go through a permit process. This is before the ILA. Excuse me. And then magically, if the thought experiment is if I'm now in the county, same thing, but the county line got moved. Am I going to go through the very same, are the laws? I don't know what's happened. Are the laws the same?
The building code is the same statewide. It's the same building code. So that it's the same transition. We'll just, whatever is started, we will just complete it and or vice.
Does that apply to all the other municipalities?
Yes.
So there's no Kelso specific ordinance?
No, only on the planning side. Planning is a little different. They have their own rules and structures, but for the building code, it's statewide.
Got it. And you're doing building codes, not planning?
Correct. So that is tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get 3 signatures, hopeful.
Well,
That's on the consent agenda.
It is on the consent.
don't forget the candy bar then.
Okay. Snickers or Twix.
Yes.
Another item we have is it's to rescind and replace the current resolution. I did this at the prior, I think it was in the spring. We changed the building day and the Building and Planning Advisory Committee. We changed the time and the day. We are again changing that. We're gonna make it on the second Tuesday on the odd number months. They're professionals, they're out in the field, I get hit or miss with, and we're trying to find the best time. So they're gonna attend the meetings right before they go home for the day. So that'll help them in the fields doing their profession as well as be a part of our BPAC group.
So did you give this group a promotion? I thought they were an advisory committee.
Just call them
You're calling
council.
it a council, huh?
Committee. That is what the original, the council is what the original resolution says. Yes, just rescinding and replacing, officially changing the time. And then on your letters and correspondence, thank you for appointing Hal Palmer as a Planning Commission member for District 2. I still need one additional member. The current member that's in there does not currently reside in District 2 anymore. They've relocated to District 1. And so I'm still in need of another District 2 representative. So
Who moved?
Matt Peters,
Oh, he did.
yes,
He moved shortly after we appointed him.
He
I
did.
think, yeah. So he'll be going off
he will go off when
commission.
we get an reappoint,
when his term is up, yeah.
no, we will be, if you guys replace him with someone currently in District 2, then he will just,
Right.
his term will expire.
Yeah.
So we still need one if you know of anyone.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you for that. And I have a vacation deferral request for the chairman to sign.
Okay. Public Works.
I'm moving fast.
You just need me here.
I'm sorry, I'm back up.
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
No, I just thought I would give you a heads up. Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. It appears we will have another budget amendment that I'll be putting in for December the 10th. So I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Regarding which fund?
It's regarding, we have a department, the Sheriff's Department, when they spoke to you about their 2025 budget, they would like to create a new fund and be able to put aside funds for their replacement of different pieces of equipment and things. So they're requesting a budget amendment to do that. So I'll be bringing it to you and workshopping it next Monday.
So they don't have.
No,
a
no,
fund-
we have a holiday.
They don't have a fund for that now and they want to start one?
Oh, they
They-
have one. It's called the general fund.
Yeah,
Oh.
they would like to start a separate fund. And so, for example, right now they're placing money for their rugged laptops with IT. They'd like to pull that back and administer that themselves. And then they have some other equipment that they spoke to you about when they were talking about their 2025 budget that they would like to administer replacement equipment for themselves.
So they are putting the funds away. It's just in different places.
Right, it's in its own fund to keep track of it.
I guess what I'm getting at, that we're not really seeing an increase in expenses. We're just looking at a different place where it goes.
Right, correct. They would like to use,
That's the theory anyway.
yeah, but they would like to use a portion of 2024's unspent funds in their sheriff's department to put aside for equipment
So
for future needs.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. On tomorrow's agenda, Public Works is bringing forth two public hearings for two separate franchises. They are scheduled for 9:30 and 9:45. These are both telecommunications fiber. We have Zayo Group at 9:30 and Mox at 9:45. The franchise agreements are essentially identical with the different utilities names in it, and they are co-located in some of the locations.
These are already existing. It's just a name change. Companies got bought out.
These are existing that expired.
But we've not had these firms before.
Correct. They have different names, but they
Right.
were put in with a
Yeah.
different franchise
Not
and
going
it's
to dig up our rights away. They're not-
not at this point, no.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pretty straightforward
Okay.
tomorrow.
Great.
Gina, I see you on.
Yes, good morning. Gina James, Health and Human Services. We just have one item on the agenda tomorrow. We've talked about this a lot over the last several months. This is our contract with Habitat for Humanity. So this one took a little bit of time to pin down the agreement and identify the funding sources, but we have it ready now. So they're using some funding for a couple different projects, both adding some new units of affordable housing in the community and doing some projects that will preserve existing affordable housing. So we have the agreement now ready for the board to consider tomorrow.
Good deal. This include, I think they had some lots over in Kelso. Am I remembering that right? Yeah.
Yes, there'll be about 14 houses they'll be working on at that site. Mhm.
Perfect.
That's the top of the hill, the old high school,
Yeah.
the really old high school.
Okay.
And is it all from document recording fees or did you get
No.
some grants from the state?
Yeah, so it'll be a combination. We'll use our state contract as much as we can. We may use some document recording fees, and then we will also be using some of the 1406 funds. So it's kind of a combination.
Thank you. Sounds good. All
Okay.
Okay, I will see you
Thank you.
tomorrow.
right.
And I was told earlier, we may not see this IT one tomorrow.
He's here.
Travis can probably better explain where we're at.
Hi, Travis Foschini, IT Director. That's correct. We're going to pull that. There needs to be a slight change to the contract before we present it for signature.
Okay, so we're gonna pull this off the agenda.
Correct.
Okay.
Sean did not mention, though, that the last thing we haven't mentioned on the consent agenda was Rusty Williams's appointment to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. That should complete the vacancies on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, right?
If I remember correctly, we still have one opening for agriculture. I don't know if you've received any
Agriculture.
Agriculture, yeah.
any submissions on that yet.
I did tell Castle Rock on last Monday at their meeting that there is an opening. So
Hmm.
they mentioned they might have somebody that would fit the agriculture. But I haven't seen anything in.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks.
Anything else? So are we gonna, are we gonna do new agendas tomorrow, or if we come out, we need to strike this one from the agenda? Kelly's gonna revise it, so when it comes out, it will, okay, good. I understand we have no HR stuff. So unless there's any other miscellaneous, we. We can adjourn. Okay, thank you.